Your thoughts? Next election coming in U.S. with everything that's going on.
Well,
You think there's a
when I
likelihood?
watched what happened in the United States with Trump and Clinton, I thought people liked the unscripted, impulsive lies of Trump better than the scripted, instrumental lies of Clinton.
What do you mean by that?
Well, Trump gave a different speech generally when he went from audience to audience. He kind of shoots from the hip, kind of, a lot. And it isn't obvious to me that shooting from the hip is really the right way to lead a country. But calculating everything beforehand for maximum impact on your political future, that is also not a way to run a country. And that's how you get pulled into politics by handler, by PR, by opinion poll, by image. You see politicians, we have to protect our image. It's like, really, do you? You have to protect your image, do you? What's your image exactly? Well, it's what we want people to think we are. Well, how about you be that instead of being the image of that? And you see this dialogue taking place, people don't even notice it. It's like, we have to protect our image. Yeah. It's like, Rogan doesn't protect his image. He doesn't have an image. He's actually there, which is why people are listening to him, or come up with some other excuse. He's a gateway to the alt-right. It's like, really, this left-leaning person with high degree of sympathy for socialist views on the working class site, who's a psychedelic experimenter, hippie, countercultural person, is a gateway to the alt-right. Really, that's
Rogan
your story.
You're talking about.
Yeah, of all the stupid stories,
right.
It's so ridiculous. The only way you could possibly believe that is if you knew nothing about him, because that's just not who he is at all. It's preposterous. But the only other explanation is that people are listening to him because they trust him, because he's trustworthy. Well, God, could that possibly be? And all the media forces that are arrayed against him aren't trustworthy. It's like, well, a lot of that, as we already talked about, that's a consequence of rapid technological transformation.
How much of that is based on the conversations he has regarding the vax? Because prior to COVID or even vaccine mandates, nobody thought that he was center-right. Nobody.
Oh yeah,
he was
no, he was getting that because he was
before COVID.
Yeah, he was hypothetically, a founding father of the intellectual dark web, and that was going back 5 years ago. And everybody viewed everybody who had a mainstream view, let's say, viewed all the people who were in the intellectual dark web, for lack of a better term, as gateway to the alt-right. Brett Weinstein and his wife Heather, those terrible right-wingers. It's so preposterous. Right. And Sam Harris as well, another hyper-conservative person.
So not that.
It's just not that at all. Not at all.
Are these people actually tuning in and listening, or are they just making assumptions?
Oh no, they don't listen. No, people who criticize. Well, what happens often, and this is why Rogan keeps growing in popularity, and it happened with me to some degree, is that people come because they're curious, and then they do listen, and then they think, oh, this is nothing like what I've been told. It's in fact and I think this was particularly true in my case in relationship to accusations of, say, far-right sympathies. It's like, well, what about all the lectures I gave on Nazism for like 30 years at two of the biggest educational institutions in the world? What about those? And then what about this? What about the fact that I now have like 300 hours of things I've said online, and you haven't been able to find one phrase, even taken out of context, that was enough to damn me in any serious sense? Not one. So now you can take some of the things I've said maybe about gender differences in personality and clip them and then put them in the most abysmal interpretive context possible and warp that seriously and kind of make an argument that I'm a misogynist, but even that's incredibly ineffective. First of all, because I'm not. The fact that I think there are differences between men and women and that I actually appreciate the differences makes me the opposite of a misogynist. Because if you're a misogynist and you don't like femininity, then you deny that it exists, and it does exist. And all the data support that. Men and women are broadly more similar than they are different in terms of their personality structure. There's no doubt about that. But the differences aren't trivial. They have major influence on occupational choice, for example. And the data on that's absolutely clear from and it's all been generated by left-leaning psychologists, because the entire psychological research community, the academic community in general, is left-leaning. So all this data is showing that there are differences between men and women at a personality level has been generated by people who are antithetical to that idea politically. So